Hey, Sam Demand here, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a basic data store value that saves. It's really not too complicated, but if you're just starting, you might have a hard time finding the information you need. I remember when I was first trying to find out how to do data store, I was doing all kinds of things, even trying to use the old Roblox save system that unfortunately wouldn't work, and I ended up wasting a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it. So, surprisingly, it's a lot more simple than you would think, and I'll show you all how to do it today. So, what I like to do first is I generally create a folder in the server script service, and let's just call that folder scripts. Now you can put the data store script basically wherever you want. Like it really doesn't matter too much. However, I just like to do this for organization purposes and whatnot. So let's create our script and insert it inside scripts. And so yeah, all you need is one server script to make this, and that's just about it. So let's get started. So first, what we're going to want to do is get the player service. So get service players, and this is useful typically because I personally like to put my data store value inside of the player so it can be attached directly to them, and you can also get their player ID fairly easily. So I personally find that the most efficient way if you want every individual player to have a value, such as like a cash value or something like that. If you're gonna have a data store that saves, I wouldn't say server wide, but if it's just based off the game only, then you can make up your own ID for it, and you don't have to put it inside a player or anything. So next up is local data store equals game get service and yeah, that just pulls up the data store service, which allows you to save. So I mean, nothing too complicated yet. And I'll call this variable. This is the variable that we'll be using to save using get async and set async. So let's just do local money equals data store get data store, and here in this like little text you're going to have I mean whatever you want really. I'll just put currency for mine. So those are really the only things that you have to do in the header for this. And then to move forward, since we're going to be putting this inside every individual player, we're going to go ahead and make a player added function. And I find that this is one of the most useful functions to use really, because it allows you to do a lot of stuff locally, and I mean it targets when the player first joins the game. If you want to base it off when the character is added, then you use character added, but we're going to use player added here. So player added connect, let's see, function player, and you're going to want to have this player value here because you're going to use that value later on while storing it. Why is it doing that? Then you have and so yeah, here's our basic player added function, and this is where you're going to be inserting the data value inside the player. So let's call our little integer value that we're going to insert inside the player. I guess I can just call it money1. So local money1 equals, let's see, yeah, I'll make it an int value. Instance.new int value, and we'll just put this inside the player. So what this line does is it puts a integer value inside the player, and since you're going to be using this inside the script, you're going to want to go ahead and name the money value, and I'll just set the name to its code name. So money1.name equals money1. Fairly simple, a little bit redundant, but you know it works, and that's all that matters in the end game, right? There's no errors or lag with this, so yeah, it works pretty well. So now we're gonna get the money1 value and set it to our data store value. So money1.value equals, and then we're going to use get async to set that money1.value to our data store value. So we'll use money get async, and what get async does is it grabs the value that's stored to the specific player, and we do that by using player.userid. Oh Lord, player.userid, and yeah, now that we have that player.userid, we type or 0. So if there isn't a value attached to their user ID, then it just sets it to 0, which makes sense. You know, if they're a new player and they haven't played the game, then it naturally won't have a saved spot for that ID. So now that we've got that, that works pretty nice and well. So this creates a value inside the player, and so yeah, when they join. But now we want to know how to save that value. So we're going to use the player leaving function, or player removing, and so we'll type this game.players.player removing connect function player, and so obviously what this function does is whenever you click the little X in the right corner of your screen and you leave the game, this function triggers and it saves a value for that player. Now, one thing I'd be careful with when using the sister function of this get async, set async, which sets a value, is that you can accidentally overload it. So whenever updating your data store values, either put a lot of wait time in between each update, or just save the value on player removed, because it's going to end up overloading it, and you'll know because you'll have a warning message which is yellow telling you that you've overloaded the data store, and it will try to add that value later. So generally you just want to avoid that. I've seen a lot of code where people will check for the value changed and then immediately update it, and that's something you don't want to do, because if they're changing it constantly, then it'll get overloaded. So now that we have that player removing function, all we have to do is set the money value to save. So the way you do that is you'll go money and then set async, and then parentheses player.userid, comma player dot money one dot value, and that should do it. So let's go ahead and make sure that everything's loading in correctly. So I'm going to play the game, and you guys won't be able to see like the studio player in the game because OBS is kind of glitching out right now, and it's not really relevant yet. Later I'll show you just that window, and just to kind of show you the effects. But right now all you really have to see is the Explorer. So here I've pressed play and I've joined in the game, and you know, we can even look at the output right now. Hopefully there's no errors. There's a chance that there might be because I'm a little bit rusty. Oh, and actually that's funny. That's actually good that that popped up. So you see API services rejected, request with error, HTTP 403 forbidden. And what that means is in Studio, whenever you join, your data store value isn't going to save because you haven't given access to it. And so yeah, it'll throw an error. And if you want to test things in Studio, then it's kind of a pain. The way you can fix this is, so let's go ahead and press stop. You go to settings, wherever that is, game settings up here, and I'm aware that it's not showing you guys the window, but you're going to want to go to game settings and then click options, and then click on at enable studio access to API services, and then click save. And now you'll be able to access the Studio API services to test your data store value. So I'm going to go ahead and click play again. And again, all y'all have to see is the Explorer right now. So I'm going to click Players True Warrior, which is the name of my player. And see, you have that money one value in there, and it's 0. So it looks like it successfully placed that money one value in there with no errors, which is good. And now we can get to testing whether or not our data store value works. So here what I'm going to do is, I think we're just going to create a brick, and then I'm going to insert a script into that brick, and inside that script, honestly, let's see, actually let's not do that. I don't feel like creating a whole new script just to test my data store value. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go to a previous game that I used to test, and I'm going to rip the brick from that game and paste it in this game so I can test the data store value. I'll probably have to tweak it a little bit, but you know, it shouldn't be too problematic. So yeah, I've got my little brick, and now I'm going to paste it into this studio window. It's good. OBS is still doing what I want it to. So I have the brick that I pasted in, and we see with this script that the money value is wrong. It's called Penguin Money, and it's in a folder that's inside a player. So we're going to want to go ahead and update that. So player.money1.value equals player.money1.value plus 1. So every time the player touches this brick, it's going to spam add 1 to the value. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and test our data store, I think, as long as I haven't screwed up anything in the test brick. So I'm going to go ahead and click play, and at this point I'm going to switch over to the player window so you guys can see kind of what's happening. Basically, I have a brick that I'm going to touch, and then it's going to add money to the player. So here's what it looks like with me playing the game. There we go. I'm going to at least try to sit in that. And so, yeah, this brick right here, I'm going to walk over here and touch it. And so now we've touched the brick. And I'm going to switch back over to the studio window. And now let's look at the players. True Warrior. So right now the value is 49, which means it updated correctly. We have no errors. So now whenever I click stop, it should save this 49 value. Sometimes it can kind of act wonky and not save the value. I'm crossing my fingers it doesn't do this here. It shouldn't, but you never know. So I'm going to click stop, and I'll go ahead and click play again. And so this would be like, you leave or you join and leave a game. So now we're going to click players, True Warrior, Money 1. Oh, and it looks like it didn't save. Not really sure why. It should have saved, and we didn't get any errors from the data store. So my theory is that, well, let's see here. No, I think it should have definitely worked. But to go ahead and test, we can just join the actual game. So I'll click on the place, and real quick I'll click play, and here I'll pull that up as well so y'all can see. Not there. Shoot. Add scene 4. Game capture. Specific window. Roblox player.beta. And that should, yeah. So now I'm in my own game, right? And another tip that you can do to check your values and whatnot is you can press F9, and looks like I forgot to publish. It's a bummer. Here, I'll leave it real quick. Go to studio. Always publish. Never forget to publish your game. Alright, now I've published it. Now I'm going to rejoin real fast. Bear with me for a second. So now we've joined again, and that brick's there, so we know if it's published. And we can click server, print game.players.truewarrior.money1.value. Alright, so right now it's 0. Now we can touch this brick. So now we've touched it. Let's see if it updated in game. And now apparently I've touched it 74 times. And so now we can close the dev console. And by the way, you do that with F9. And you can do it in every game that you own. So now let's exit the game, and we'll just wait a second. I'll shut down all servers, and now I'm going to play the game again, and hopefully it will update the value. If it doesn't, then we'll have to look back to the script and see where I made potential errors. And we're loading in. Should be any second now. There we go. Now let's see if it's updated. So go to server, print game.players.true warrior.money one.value. And now see, it's 74. Looks like the value saved. And yeah, as I said earlier, sometimes it can glitch through Studio and can be a pain in the behind. So now you might ask me, hey, how is this useful, just having a value inside the player? What you can do is you can update a screen GUI with a text label inside that displays the player's money on their screen, or you can, do game events like, more simple, where you can set their spawn value. So you could set their spawn value to 1, and then another script check that value and then teleport them to their spawn. That's what I did in an obstacle game I created recently. Or more complicated, since you can pass data store values through servers and whatnot, you can use it as a player count if you have a hub with several different games, and that turns out to be extremely useful as well. So whatever you want to do, I hope you guys found this pretty useful, and I'll put the code up one more time to so you guys can look at it and copy it down a little bit. Maybe pause the video here if you want to copy it. I don't really care if you copy or not. But yeah, I hope you guys learned a thing or two about Datastore, and I hope you guys find learning this easier than I did, because back in the day I didn't really have too much to learn from. So thanks for watching my videos as always, and stay safe, have fun, and hope y'all make some games that blow up.